everybody. This is a different thing for my channel. I haven't done this much, so this might be weird. We'll find out. I'm going to review a video. I've got Nate, Navigate with Nate here with me, and this is a video from Daniel Ray that came out of a conversation that he and I had after he made a video about the flying man example that is a favorite of Pine Creek Doug's. And then Doug made a live stream reviewing his flying man video, which caused a dog pile in Daniel's channel. Well, okay, maybe that's a downside for him. I don't know, maybe it isn't. But it certainly boosted his subscriber count. So all good. All right. That night, was it that night or the day after, whatever it was, I had a conversation with Daniel about Doug's concern because Doug sort of ended it on a note of not wanting to engage with Daniel based on his impression that Daniel's relationship with Jesus is what keeps him from suicide. So, wow. And anyway, Daniel put out a video following that conversation, and I think he did a very good job. So I want to review it here today. You and me and them and us and all of us here. Thank you. Hello. Hello, everybody. I will let you all in, and you can talk into the panel once we get to the Q&A part. It's about a 12-minute video. I think my commentary is maybe 1.5 times that long, so we'll be about a half an hour, and then we'll pop it open to Q&A.
Sounds good. Let's get going.
Good. Let's go.
Street Epistemology, survey question 15. It is okay to accept something as true because it is comforting. What do you think? Leave a civil reply in the comments.
Okay. I'm going to cut and jump in a lot. The question is it okay to accept something true because it is comforting? This is very close to what Daniel and I talked about. I was talking about noble truths, those kind of truths where it might literally be wrong, but it still still informs a good, safe, proper strategy. I think believing the gun is loaded is a good, noble truth to have. And why somebody originally adopted a belief is not what I'm talking about. It's whether it's worth putting effort into testing a belief and deciding whether you want to reconsider that belief is the thing that I'm referring to in regards to addressing noble truths. Hey, but it's close enough. So let's keep listening. Nate, of course, jump in whenever you like. Wave and stomp if you want me to pause
sure.
Any of the spots.
No problem. We'll do.
I claim to be a follower of Christ. I've testified of his saving me from sin and suicide. Some who practice street epistemology have told me that because of this, they do not wish to challenge my beliefs. They have told me plainly that they think it is good that I remain a Christian. Some, however, have suggested I am unwilling or unable or afraid of challenging my beliefs.
Thank you, Daniel. Good summary. I can tell who I am in that one. I do indeed think it's a good idea that Daniel remain a Christian. I think he has a good life, and I don't think losing his faith would necessarily, or even strongly likely, offer him a better life.
Agreed.
I do derive comfort from my beliefs, but I do not believe in Jesus' resurrection or Christianity in general, only because it gives me comfort. Those who tell me it is good for me that I remain a Christian also believe Christianity is false. This poses a dilemma for street epistemologists who advocate for critical thinking.
I love a dilemma. Thank you for bringing a dilemma. Lay it on me. I can probably predict, and by the way, I wrote these notes directly to Daniel when he asked me to review this video back to him. So the notes I'm reading from are me reading through the first time. I can probably predict, Daniel, that you will say that I can't really believe in critical thinking while not being committed to everyone should want to believe only true things. We'll see if I get that right.
Is it good that I believe in something that is false because I derive comfort from it?
I don't think that it's true because it provides comfort is a good epistemology. I think you would agree that it's not a good reason to believe a thing.
And I think it's important here to point out that comfort and safety are not necessarily the same thing. It's important to keep in mind that the context of what Daniel's talking about has to do with a season of depression and suicidality in his life. But that's not necessarily what I interpret this survey statement to be about. I don't jump to those kind of dire consequences when I think of comfort. That could be a problem with how I understand the survey statement, though.
Okay, thank you very much.
Some have claimed I've not really examined how it is I refrained from taking my life decades ago. I only think Jesus did it. I briefly share at the end of this video what happened. Or is it better I jettison the comfort and security of a false belief and embrace the truth, whatever that might be? Shouldn't accepting the truth be better than believing a lie? Does this mean a false religion is superior to any truth an atheist accepts? For an atheist to say, it's better I stay a Christian, suggests that atheists and atheism in general have nothing comparable to a falsehood that makes people feel good.
Okay. Just my opinion. I think a false religion is superior if it helps you live a better life. Very pragmatic about this. In some societies, not believing in the local religion can be dangerous to your health and survival. In that case, those stubborn atheists can have, "But I was right," written on their tombstone. That's about as helpful as "This pedestrian was found post-mortem to have had the right of way." A soldier that has an over-optimistic estimation of their side's odds in a fight might be more effective or might survive the battle better. Many false beliefs can have utility compared to the actual reality for some goals.
And those are really good points, Dali. I think what this dilemma really shines a light on is that all of us have multiple values, and at times those values can come into conflict with each other. Every person is going to have a hierarchy of values, and we might not even be aware exactly what our hierarchy looks like until push really comes to shove. So here, kind of the values that I've identified are safety, comfort, and truth. I think those are really the three main things that we're discussing here. And like I said before, the word comfort is on the Street Epistemology survey. The word safety isn't part of this, but I think that's more of what we're talking about here. Personally, I value comfort the least of these values, but safety competes a lot more directly with truth for me, at least personally. And so while I might be willing to risk my own safety in pursuit of truth, depending on the circumstances and, how unsafe I'm willing to be, and I don't really know what that might look like for me, depending on what I find myself in, I'm not generally going to be willing to risk another person's safety to try to push them toward truth. It doesn't mean I don't value truth. I do. It just means that sometimes our values can come into conflict.
Yeah, totally. And when my values, as you're saying, come into conflict in my dealings with another person, I try to put a strong check on, if I only take their interests into account, would I make this decision? And if I can't clearly do that, then I need some further balancing reason to override what would be their best interests, and not that's maybe a lot better than my intuition or just my personal preferences or something.
Right.
Yeah. We might not have, we atheists, this is now at the bottom part, we atheists might have nothing comparable to the feeling of being in relationship to the Creator. Many ex-theists report to me that they don't get that feeling, the feeling of euphoria, emotional state, whatever is that positive thing that others report they found, and others report that they found things to replace the things that they had in church or community worship with experiences outside the church. For myself, I had learned a particular experience that as the visiting of the Holy Spirit, that as an adult, I replicated anytime I sang in a choir. secular choir. So I've come to what's the word? I changed my opinion of what the cause was.
Reattribute. Maybe.
That's it. Thank you. I've learned to reattribute that particular feeling to the social effect of singing together.
Yeah. Music is a big thing for that. I know some of the most spiritual experiences I've had were listening to some music, lying in the grass, looking at the stars.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, the people in church would not have liked that music.
Well, yes. I want to leave open the option that when I was a Christian for the first 40 years of my life, and well, a theist anyway, that I didn't have the kind of experiences that would be differentiated. So I don't want to say Christians don't have experiences that ex-theists still have, something like that.
Let me say here that I believe some who have told me it is best I remain a believer do so out of a sincere and compassionate intent. I do understand and acknowledge their sincerity and concern. I am not here by any means dismissing that.
That really means a lot to me. I really appreciate that he recognizes my sincerity and concern. And I'm pretty sure I'm the one he's speaking to in this context. Speaking about.
However, how can one be advocating for critical thinking when their conclusion is that it's better for someone to be comforted by a falsehood than to embrace the truth? There are many people who give up their belief in God and seem to be able to live normal, meaningful, and productive lives, despite the inevitable struggle that occurs in abandoning belief in God. But can we assess whether belief in God or atheism is true simply based on the level of comfort and happiness one attains?
No.
No. we can't make that assessment. Okay.
That's me.
Yeah. I think comfort might be a good reason to not dislodge a belief, not go picking at it. If it's really comfortable, maybe put it on the lower down on the list of priorities. Like, for example, I have not for a long time seriously reconsidered eating meat. I find it very comfortable, and it hasn't risen into the top 100 moral priorities in my life. And maybe I could be convinced otherwise. I know that I can think of things that would convince me. So vegans, hit me. It's fine. I'm
right for the picking.
Yeah, I'm all about the cost-benefit ratio on these things. I suggest anyone prioritize beliefs for reconsideration by cost-benefit ratio. The trivial beliefs are just for the exercise, to practice the process of reconsideration and checking the foundations, starting knowledge and assumptions. Only those non-trivial beliefs that are causing harm to yourself or others are worth picking at. If I have an addiction, maybe propped up by a false belief, that's reason enough for me to pay the cost of reconsideration of whatever that false belief might be, if I could solve an addiction or whatever. If I'm angry at people because I believe something about their motivations, even if there's only a small chance that I could learn that I was wrong, it would way be worth fixing my anger at people if I could learn that I was wrong in that case. Life is too short. You don't have enough time to reconsider all of your beliefs in life. Pick the ones that matter. Pick the ones that make the most harm. He said that there was an inevitable struggle, and I very much agree that the struggle that occurs in abandoning any strongly held belief, whether it be God or whatever, has a very significant emotional impact. There's a lot of stress that comes from that.
And the more deeply held it is, the more impactful that is.
Mm-hmm. Can we assess any beliefs true in space on comfort and happiness? No. If we did, most who agree that it's true because it feels good is a bad epistemology. Is that it's true because it feels good? I think that's bad. They would say,
I think we can agree.
Yeah. If they say, if comfort is the only reason I have, I should reduce my confidence to at least some level of agnostic. Comfort is a good reason counting towards benefit in the cost-benefit ratio of not calling for the audit.
In other words, is the amount of comfort, meaning, and purpose one derives from their worldview or beliefs a good reason for believing their worldview and beliefs are true? If those aren't good reasons for believing something is true, why not then contend for what is true?
Let's see. My notes say, does comfort, meaning, purpose indicate truth? I think no, in my opinion, except in cases where truth is about comfort or meaning or purpose as a goal. Like, for example, is it true that patriotism gives meaning? Apparently, yes. And if patriotism didn't work to give you that feeling, would it work? Probably not. So if it's about that, yes, it's a good reason. But otherwise, no, I think.
Wouldn't really be patriotism then, right? Kind of defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah, if you don't feel it.
Yeah. And I agree that comfort, meaning, and purpose are not good reasons for somebody to believe their worldview is true. Like you said, not really a good epistemology. And I think Daniel agrees. I'm pretty sure that's what he's getting at here. But once again, coming back to the topic, right? I really don't think we're necessarily talking about comfort. And like with the context of, what Doug and others may have said to Daniel in the past, I don't think it's about comfort. I think it's about safety and well-being. So safety and well-being, to me, that can be a good reason for an outsider, such as an SE practitioner, to not try to dissuade somebody from beliefs that they seem to greatly depend on. If we really care about people and well-being, if that's one of your core values, for me, it is. And there's a self-reported high degree of likelihood that losing a cherished belief would put that person's well-being at risk. I think we might be morally obligated not to challenge those beliefs in most circumstances. There are going to be some exceptions, of course.
To be clear, we are not professionals at any of this. We need to err on the side of safety. We need to strongly work out of an abundance of caution. Okay, let's keep going.
Jesus said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." What does the atheist say truth is? Can't whatever atheists accept as truth set people free? If it can, why not persuade me to accept it?
Okay, why not contend for what is true? Because I am uncertain what is true or not in many cases. I don't know what are the good or best epistemologies. I think I know of several of the bad ones. I'm not even sure about those. Critical thinking in a team allows for the personal examination and subjective evaluation of truth in light of one's own epistemologies, refined and improved by partnership. The results are still ambiguous, and we don't have the truth. I'm pretty darn sure about some things, like the speed of light in a vacuum, and nothing for certain because my memory is fallible. There's 3 more questions embedded in this. Atheists say truth is. Oh, well, it varies because we're a mixed bunch of daft twits. If the atheist is me, I say the truth is the result of an epistemology. And I'm referring to not the overall epistemology, but an epistemology is a way of believing things in a category. I have a big old copy pasta on that, and I'm not going to get into the whole thing. I'll just say, if you can count it, that's a good reason to think you know how many there are. If you can define categories about it and then hand those categories to a bunch of different observers and find that they categorize things the same way, you can know you have a good operational definition. Things like that. There are ways in which you can know stuff for the different kinds of sciences. And truth is defined differently in each of those categories. All right. Can't atheists set truth? Okay, sorry. Can't whatever atheists accept as truth set people free? I get messed up with negatively phrased questions, but I think I can answer positive. Can whatever atheists accept as truth set people free? No. There is no particular freedom granted in atheism. There's no salvation implied in atheist truth. The most atheists... Go ahead.
I kind of interpreted that question a little bit differently, but it might be just I don't exactly know what Daniel's getting at here.
Okay.
I know that some people, upon losing religion, feel a sense of freedom.
Sure.
They feel a sense of freedom that they can, determine their own lives. Many of them escape high control groups or high control religions. They no longer feel like they have to do certain things. They no longer feel tremendous sense of guilt for every little mistake they make. So when I read this question, that's kind of how I took it.
Okay.
Yeah, not looking at salvation. Yeah, salvation, no, but freedom, perhaps.
Yeah. If I put on my theist hat, I'm going to say the truth shall set you free because it provides for salvation and provides for you to have a good relationship with God, which frees you from not
The bondage of sin.
Jesus. Wait a second. I went backwards on that. So sorry. All right. The most atheists hope for is to understand reality well enough to make a good strategy for living a good life. If you already have a good life, maybe don't bother changing, is my point about does it set you free? No, don't look for freedom as a result of atheism. Why not persuade you to accept atheist truth? Because we agree there is an inevitable stress and cost. The reward is neither certain nor profoundly better than your current life. My cost-benefit ratio says don't try unless it's causing significant harm. Now, if you were trying to get people not to use condoms in a place ravaged with STDs, that would be enough harm to swing the calculation the other way in my mind, and I might come at you with all of my measly powers of persuasion. Not that that's going to do much of anything, but I would certainly be willing to try and talk the Pope out of it. Anybody with a Catholic hat? Oh, no, I'm coming at you, boy.
Right. And this is one of those examples. I talked a little bit earlier about certain circumstances, and yeah, we do need to consider the effects that individual's belief might have on the well-being of other people when we are trying to balance out that well-being ledger and deciding whether to challenge someone's belief. Totally agree.
Yeah.
If Christians you meet are well-adjusted, confident, and comfortable in what they believe, why then attempt to cause doubt, especially if you have nothing else to offer them?
Well-adjusted question, why provoke doubt? If there was no obvious harm, I wouldn't. I'm currently, I think, in the minority of atheists in this regard, but I have a voice and perhaps some persuasion. That's what this video is about, by the way. Most of them see Christians and think Westboro Baptist protests or the worst clergy they remember, and think harmful is the default.
Yeah.
Where I don't think that most Christians are causing harm in the world.
Yeah. Not all Christians are trying to dismantle public education or overthrow the government. Just some of them.
Just some of them, yes. So let's only talk to them. No, that's not good. I think we also want to talk to anybody who's a theist who's deconstructing. If they're pulling out of their religion, we want open arms. We want to make the process as easy as possible for them. Give them a place to land and not just have them abandoned and shunned and looking around for what's to fill this empty God-shaped hole.
If atheists also claim to be well-adjusted and are living meaningful and purposeful lives, what do you say as a street epistemologist say to an outsider on the fence about atheism and Christianity, someone who is trying to determine which is true?
I love me an outsider test. Thank you. Excellent, Daniel. Outsider test. Outsider considering two equally well-adjusted people, one Christian, one atheist, they would have no difference to compare. If you see two well-adjusted people and the outsider doesn't know the difference. If one person said that only they could be well-adjusted and the other can't, I guess the other is you, Nate, they lose credibility. Okay, and if the outsider perceives both to be well-adjusted. So if one says, oh no, they can't be well-adjusted, only I can, that would be a way the outsider could tell that at least one of them was wrong about something.
Yeah, that's a falsifiable claim.
It is, definitely. If there is a perceived difference, the outsider might be persuaded that one system is better at achieving a well-adjusted life. Most would agree that better at achieving a well-adjusted life is only weakly indicative of truth.
Yeah, so what I would say to that fence sitter is follow the evidence as best you can, be honest with yourself, and which I think should be probably the measure that comes before any measure of well-adjustedness anyway. If you are just seeking the truth, looking at who's more well-adjusted isn't really what's going to get you there.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I converted to Judaism in 2000 because there was a group of Jews that I knew that were so well-adjusted, and I really loved the way they dealt with their morality, and that's what persuaded me.
Fruits of the Spirit, man.
There it is.
I think that's a Christian concept, but
yeah. Well, I think it works for Judaism too. I think it works for Islam.
So here's what happened. I was sitting in the garage with my car running. I had no desire to live. And by the way, this was the same way that my dad took his own life when I was...
Sorry to interrupt. I am really glad that you're putting this out publicly, Daniel. Excellent. It's a very compelling story. I can speak for Nate and say that we are very glad you survived this ordeal and are with us today.
Was in high school. I turned off the car. I don't know why. No real reason came to mind at the time. I had a thought to call a missionary couple who routinely prayed for me. The wife answered right away. She was going to call me. Just a moment before, she said the Lord told her I was in great danger. So she earnestly prayed for me, not knowing what was wrong. That was a sobering moment for me, as I realized Jesus did see what I was doing, because my missionary friend had no other way of knowing I was in danger. Why did Jesus spare my life but not my father's? I don't know. Not long after that incident, the missionary came over with another missionary, and they both prayed for me and told me that I would one day write books. The story behind the story of the cosmos is another incredible testament of Jesus doing the impossible for me for his glory. Story of the Cosmos is an answer to the missionary's prayer. There is a link to the story behind Story of the Cosmos in the notes of this video. Over the years, Jesus has given me encouragement through his word, especially Romans 12, 1 and 2. He emptied me of myself, brought me to the end of myself, and continues to do so I can see what he would do, what he can do, what he will do through me. Romans 12, 1 and 2 says, quote, "Therefore I urge you, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living and holy sacrifice, acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service of worship. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and perfect." End quote. Some people over the years have said that Christianity was the problem, and that's what caused me despair. I was at the time a Christian. I was an ignorant new Christian. I was only a believer for about 5 or 6 years at the time. I don't remember exactly, but I would not at all say that it was the fault of Christianity that brought me to a point of despair. Rather, I would say it was my own ignorance of Christianity, not knowing who Jesus was, having an improper understanding, a lack of an understanding, and an ignorance about who Jesus really was and his love for me. And so the Romans verse encouraged me to remain alive. I felt like over the years, it has been Jesus's way of saying, remain alive, Daniel, and watch. I will show you what I will do through you and for you for my glory. And that is indeed what he has done by me just being given the strength to remain alive, by his saving me through my missionary friend's prayer, that I have been a spectator to the wonderful things that God has done through me. Jesus asks all of us to turn to him from our sin, that is repentance, turning away from sin and turning to Christ. He bids all of us who are weary and heavy laden to come to him for rest. He bids us to be still and know that he is both Lord and God. He is our creator. If we remain alive, we can see the great and wonderful works and gifts he has prepared for us.
I know you are not afraid, Daniel, and you shouldn't be. Your reasons are strong, and you have good apologetics to defend your belief.
Yeah, and speaking of the whole not afraid to challenge himself. I think kind of keeping an eye on this whole topic of SE ethics, because I really think this is a lot of what we're talking about here. There's at least to me a big difference between Daniel being willing to challenge his own beliefs and somebody else coming in and challenging his beliefs.
Yes.
Now, for the record, I think for Daniel, I don't think he's at a place in his life currently where he would likely become a danger to himself again if he were to lose this belief. But I don't know Daniel that well. I've only recently started communicating with him, but he seems to be pretty well adjusted. But if Daniel were to self-report that he would become depressed and possibly suicidal should he lose his faith, to me, then there is now a big ethical difference between an SE practitioner, for example, choosing to ignore those warning signs, that self-reporting, versus Daniel being willing to challenge his own beliefs. So it's great that Daniel's willing to challenge his own beliefs. But looking at things kind of from that SE perspective, we do come up against some ethical grinding if somebody might be unwilling to and reports that they could be put in danger if they are to be challenged.
So I am not afraid or unwilling to challenge what I believe because I know the one who has rescued me and continues to rescue me. He is more than able to keep the lions at bay. My namesake Daniel, I was named after my great grandfather Daniel, and he was named after Daniel in the Bible. And so I often think of myself as Daniel in the lion's den sometimes, one of my favorite verses. If I were unwilling or afraid to challenge my beliefs, for one thing, I certainly would not be routinely participating and moderating in our atheist and Christian book club, which has featured some of the top minds in the skeptic community. So I am not afraid or unwilling to challenge what I believe because I know in whom I do believe. More importantly, he knows me. Now, this is just kind of one of my favorite things that Hubble has ever taken a picture of. Now, NASA scientists call this Mystic Mountain, and it is a nebulae. This is all the gas and dust and things being emitted by a star somewhere in the center of that mass, but you can see why they call this Mystic Mountain. What a menagerie of wonder and awe this is. This is courtesy of the Hubble Space Telescope. This is the Carina Nebula is its more formal name. But what I'm about to say is just Daniel Ray's imagination, okay? I am not saying that God intended this nebulae to be relaying these things that I'm about to share with you.
Cool. Yes. I hear that the following is your speculation and you're not making claims about your interpretation of what you see here. And none of us should take this as Daniel's translation of what God is trying to tell us through this astronomical picture. Gotcha.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. When I first watched this video, this is kind of when I stopped. I did a little skipping ahead from here. I lost interest at this point, but Dali, all yours if you think it's worth addressing.
Sure. I'm going to let it play out. It's a very pretty picture. It'll only take a few minutes.
I'm simply looking at this and saying, you know what this reminds me of? That's all I'm doing. So before you light up the comment section with what a weirdo, I mean, you probably still will, but this is just stuff that I saw in gazing at these pictures over the years. I love Hubble images. I love astronomy. Of course, the book I wrote is The Story of the Cosmos. But anyway, this is what I see in the Carina Nebula. And I'm not saying this isn't what he intended, but wow, I think you might find this intriguing nonetheless. So here we go. I think this is, it reminds me of Daniel in the lion's den. And here's why. There in the middle of that ring is a profile of what I think Daniel looks like, a young youth from Israel. I'm just my imagination. There's somebody in the middle of that. There's a profile of a face.
Okay. Let's see. Maybe I have to have my face. Maybe I have to have my face on here so that you can hear me. Yeah, it's a pareidolia Daniel from the Bible. That's cool. That's as good a picture as any for someone we don't have any images of. By the way, I got an email regarding this particular pareidolia thing that I'll read after and during the Q&A about the pareidolia thing. Press play, Dali.
And then here is another fascinating thing. This is really what caught my attention. This guy. And now, if you know the story of Daniel in the lion's den, you know that Nebuchadnezzar is the one responsible for throwing Daniel into the lion's den because he refused to obey the king's edict. And this is a picture of Nebuchadnezzar. And I thought, wow, when I don't remember how this came together, but I thought, man, that looks almost identical. So Nebuchadnezzar there, again, just my imagination, but wow, isn't that pretty cool? And then there's this hand down there in the corner. He's upholding all things. He's holding this all together, this hand down there in the corner. And then the remarkable thing is, count the lions. How many images or profiles or outlines of lions do you see? I'm just highlighting a few here. There's a lion in the back and his tail. And then the one above Nebuchadnezzar's head is a lion. There's his body. There's his tail. There's his paws coming down, his back paws. So I like this. This is the Daniel in the Lion's Den nebula. That's what I like to call it. Now, also, too, you can see this, the shape of a cross here. It reminds me, of course, of Jesus's cross, that configuration there. And, of course, whatever you may think of this nebula, it's just pretty amazing and wonderful. We do know what the Bible does say about the heavens. The heavens are telling of the glory of God, and the expanse shows forth his handiwork. Day unto day pours forth speech, and night unto night reveals knowledge. Psalm 19, 1 and 2. There's no scripture, there's no scripture in the Bible that says, hey, this nebula that Hubble found, that's Daniel in the lion's den. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it reminds me of that. That's all. But I'd like to conclude with this. It's what Paul tells the non-believers in Athens. Paul says, quote, therefore, having overlooked the times of ignorance, God is now declaring to all men that all people everywhere should repent, because he has fixed a day in which he will judge the world in righteousness through a man whom he has appointed, having furnished proof to all men by raising him from the dead. End quote.
I love Daniel's choices of music. Doug hates Daniel's choices of music. Just yet another area in which I disagree with Doug. But we like each other just fine, so it's fine. It's okay.
Friends can disagree.
Friends can disagree about things, especially music. Oh, gosh. Thank you, Daniel, for making this. I've posted the StreamYard link in if anybody wants to jump in with Q&A, or you can throw messages in the chat, or you can come up here on the screen and talk with us. I do have some... Daniel might have joined us were his rural internet capable of this level of video. And for the most part, he can't get internet that is awesome enough. But we have awesome internet. And so in this particular case, he's representing himself with text. And I'm going to read out that text. But anybody can call in. Let's see. Let me put up the banner that we can have people join us. If you like. Email from Daniel about the pareidolia while I wait for people. So imagine this is Daniel's voice. I sound almost as pretty as him, I hope. Why'd I mention the nebula? Mainly because I love astronomy. He wrote live, but I think he meant love. Astronomy and cosmology. And because I'd mentioned the origin of my name as being from my great-grandfather Daniel, who was named after Daniel in the Lion's Den. And well, how fitting it kind of is that I'm surrounded by atheists and skeptics watching and commenting on the videos I do. What would I say to an atheist who suggested my Daniel Pareidolia Nebula was exactly what I do with Christianity, as one fellow did in the comments?
It wasn't me.
It wasn't you. No, it wasn't me either. And that's all good. Anyway, he would.
Sorry, I derailed your train there.
Oh, fine. This is all interactive like we're doing. Well, the events of New Testament were not done in a corner. Herod the Great, his son, Herod the Tetrarch, Quirinius, Felix, Festus, Pilate, not to mention the hostile witnesses of first century temple Judaism all existed during the time of Christ. Christianity was not concocted out of seeing patterns in clouds, but seeing Christ in the flesh. If the New Testament is merely the product of a man's imagination, then whomever wrote it must have been a pure genius with a supernatural power for deceiving people. That individual ought to be a savior if the one he wrote about was just a literary character.
I just want to point out these are not the only two choices. But continue.
Oh yeah, yeah. I can agree with that. Let's see. I'm going to. You can see what I'm doing as I'm reading. Christianity isn't something I made up by staring into space. I don't think it's something others made up by staring into the sky. The New Testament writers claim that the events they report are rooted and grounded in real history. But if anyone makes a claim Daniel's faith is mere pareidolia projection, SE them on it and ask them to share how they know that. Okay, I'm going to interrupt his and say, yes. If any of you or people you know or whatever want to make the claim that Daniel's faith is a mere pareidolia projection, schedule with me. Private, public, recorded, not recorded, whatever. I am down for that conversation. Back to his email. If people want to change my mind about Christianity, that's fine. Just show me the evidence for the superiority of atheism. If atheism is superior to Christianity, then you should not worry about me leaving Christianity as being harmful. Show me why the New Testament is untrustworthy, that sort of thing. You guys can share any of the contents of these emails I sent you tonight. You don't have to, but you have my permission. Thank you. I've taken your permission, and I've used it. And here it is. There's that stuff. Have a good show. Thank you. I would like to have a good show. Let me switch the screens around just a bit and share. Yes, that one. Daniel shared with me a picture from inside his studio that relates to the lion portrait in the girl that was talked about. Was she talked about in this video?
Or I think it's in the email. It's in the email that scroll up a little more.
The one in the italics. Okay. I'm trying to remember what the connection is here, but there's a letter from someone who was his student who drew this portrait. Let me scroll up to the one where I stretched it and filled the page. It's a drawing of Aslan. Very pretty. Dear Mr. Ray. Hello, Mr. Ray. This is, name redacted, an old student of yours when you taught 7th grade at, oh, that place is redacted. I have no idea if you will ever get or read this, but I just want to say thank you, as you have no idea how you have impacted my life. Thank you so much for everything you talked about, especially on the Lord. That is what drove me to Jesus. I have been born again for 6 years, moving on 7, as of June 28th. I know you don't know this, but I was extremely depressed and struggled with it for 9 years. About 2 years before I was in your class, I became suicidal, and I struggled with that for about 5 years. If I did not have you as a teacher, I probably would not have lived through 7th grade, much less 8th grade. It was simply you talking about the Lord during class that somehow kept me alive and gave me something to search for. Without that, I don't know how I could have found Jesus. I hate to say it, but if the Lord hadn't caught me at the right moment in my life almost 7 years ago, what I went through in high school would have definitely killed me. So thank you so much for impacting me in a way that let the Lord work in my life and for showing Christ to me. I hope life is going well for you and that the Lord is taking you to amazing places. If you never read this, you shall see me in heaven when the Lord bursts those clouds to take all of us that belong to him. Love in Christ. Name redacted. So, another example of someone who attributes their relationship to Jesus as important in saving them from suicide. it's a common enough concern, and we in the SE community are kind of I think we are ethically bound to be very, very careful about taking people out of a what do I say? Out of a system that's working for them. I don't mean all theists. I mean the ones that are very invested. I mean the ones for whom we have reason to believe the personal cost would be high. When I speak to ex-theists, due to survivorship bias, pretty much all of them report to me that their life is better once it's been at least 5 years, but that the first 2 years was hell. Round numbers. So that's my voice. That's my persuasion. Be careful. If somebody comes to you, great. And
yeah, agreed.
Don't push it when you're not sure.
Yeah, and it's hard. Like you said, you got to be really careful, because you can't get inside of somebody else's head. I mean, part of the practice is trying to do that and trying to help them get inside their own head to a certain extent. But
yeah,
we can never know exactly what it's like to be somebody else, and we don't really know where they've been and what those shoes feel like.
Yeah. If I ever ran into this student, I hope she would tell me so that I would know to not push her where she doesn't want to go. Anyway, thank you all. No joiners yet. That's okay. I think we've covered it. Nate, do you have any last words?
I think that this is really important to talk about these. I know that these discussions have been going on for a while. I've watched a lot of great conversations featuring some experienced SE people who really care about this and really struggle with, the ethics of doing this. And a lot of it comes down to a case-by-case basis. I wouldn't say that this topic should discourage you from doing SE, but just to keep this in mind and try to be careful about it, especially when dealing with these kind of beliefs. As I've been out in the communities doing interviews, I haven't hit on one of these kinds of beliefs yet, but I think after really considering everything that Daniel said in his video, I'm going to probably be a little bit more careful in the future about maybe asking some of those questions that you might have heard, like, if your belief changed, how would this potentially affect your life? How could you see your life changing? And then once again, believe them, right?
Yeah.
Take that self-reporting seriously.
Yeah. Even if I thought they were wrong, I should take that at face value, at least. I shouldn't.
Right.
If my decision wouldn't work with face value, if I would have to reinterpret their answer to something I thought was more true, I'm already off base.
Yeah. You're taking unnecessary risks with somebody else's well-being.
Exactly. Thank you all. I'm going to wave goodbye. If everybody waves, the broadcast ends.